Hi, my name is Quinn O'Connor, and for my project for the 2021 Science Fair, I decided that I wanted to 3D print an electrophoresis chamber and compare it to an industrially manufactured chamber in order to test its efficiency and try to lower costs on equipment within labs. So this is my model. I built a chamber, and the insert is what will hold the gel, and then the comb will provide the indents for the food coloring to go into. And the food coloring will act as a tracking dye and produce bands as an electromagnetic current is applied to the field. So electrophoresis is a process that's most commonly found in forensics, and it is used to compare a DNA sample found at a crime scene to a DNA sample that is already provided. Usually the two DNA samples will be placed next to each other in the indents in the agarose gel, and they will produce the same pattern as an electromagnetic field, causes them to go under a polymer chain reaction, and it'll separate the molecules almost like a filter into different sizes, and as these sizes are the same, it can be concluded that the DNA samples match. So a big strength that I think I had in my project was that I was already kind of familiar with electrophoresis. I did originally find out about it when I took forensic science, and I was already aware of the other ways in which it can be utilized, especially in the medical field, for trying to determine the molecular weight of a protein, or for DNA sequencing, paternity test, all of that. And I think that it was really helpful that I had a little bit of background in 3D printing, not enough to have done this without a lot of practice, but I did kind of already know how to find software, how to use the software, and I think that this also helped me learn a lot about how to utilize 3D printing materials, and I did have to research what kind of filament to use that would be heat resistant when I applied the electromagnetic field. However, I think some weaknesses in my design were that I did make a lid, which I found was relatively ineffective because I wanted to watch the process as it unfolded to make sure that nothing was going wrong. I think I could have made my chamber bigger. I think that would have really benefited me in my trials. It would have been a little bit more accurate in comparison to the industrially manufactured chamber. And I would have liked to have bigger indents with the comb. This is, I think, around 3 millimeters small, so it was really difficult to insert the food dye using the pipette. So the purpose of my experiment was to find a more inexpensive way to conduct electrophoresis. It can get very expensive, especially when purchasing buffer solution and agar gel in large amounts. So I thought that if we can find a way that this can work just as efficiently, we can cut down on costs within labs. At home, people can do paternity testing from their house without having to send it to a lab, and it's relatively simple once you get the hang of it. So if we can make this more accessible within medical research, more money can be allocated to different aspects of electrophoresis or of other studies conducted in general. Some unexpected things that I ran into over my project was that I didn't have as much time to do it as I had hoped. I only had a day to do all of my trials, and I would have liked to have conducted more trials, but there just wasn't the time allowance for that. I also couldn't export a lot of my documents, which was a very big issue. There were a lot of them that were corrupted, but it all ended up okay. I also ran out of some buffer solution. We did find more, but I had not originally ordered enough, so if I were to do this in the future, I would get more buffer solution. I was completely fine on the agar gel, but that was a big issue that I encountered during my experiment. Additionally, I did have an electrical issue within the power supply for the industrial chamber, which I think did skew some of my results in my second and third trial. I did figure it out. It worked originally in my first trial, and it worked in my fourth trial, but I did not have the time allowance to redo those trials. But I am glad that I encountered that because it taught me how to fix it. Overall, I'm very happy with how my project turned out. I think that with some modification in 3D printed chamber, as well as in some of the procedures and a few more trials, I would like to experiment with the concentration of the agar gel as well as the voltage on the 3D chamber. But with some of those modifications, I believe it could prove to be just as efficient.